Hey everybody, today we are talking about Musashi books 4 through 7 by Eiji Yoshikawa. I just finished reading this and I was so excited that I just had to start filming right away. What an incredible journey this has been. I am so glad that I picked this up and that I finally started reading it, and it's just so good. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I will just start where we last left off. My first video was on books 1 through 3 because that's what I had finished at the time, and I just wanted to not forget too much about what I was reading. As you know, if you watched the first one, I had said how I was keeping notes so that I would remember, because I was reading other books at the same time, which is another reason why this took me forever to finish. Also because it's massive, so that I could keep track of what even happened. We have a lot to cover. Just be aware that I have so much that I want to share with you today. Let's go ahead and get started with book 4, which is Wind. We left off with Musashi and his journey to find the proper way of a samurai and how to go about that, and he decided that he needed to just go to all the major schools and defeat the leaders, essentially, to show that he is strong enough in the way. But he discovers that it's a lot more to do with him as a person, not just him as a fighter, but also like his spirit. And so he's trying to figure that out at the same time as like figuring out who he needs to battle next. And he's at the Yoshikawa school now, but now he's meeting Sejiro to battle him. It turns out that he succeeds in his battle with him, but does not kill him. Walks away feeling a little bad about it because he felt like he was just, like, Sejiro was just way under-skilled for him, and so he felt a little bad about defeating him. Of course, people from the Yoshikawa school are mad about this, and they're like, oh, we gotta take our revenge. So they contact Sejiro's brother, and who has been kind of MIA for a little while of the school, and just kind of doesn't really care so much about it, but he's like, well, I gotta go defend this now. So he goes. Musashi finds out that he finds like a note, I'm pretty sure, that just says like, hey, you're gonna battle us now. You're gonna battle Denji Chido, I think is his name. Before it actually happens, on his way to try to kind of lay low for a little bit after the bout with Sejiro, he runs into a calligrapher named Koetsu. He is living with his mother, and they're very lovely, nice people that he actually wasn't really planning on sticking around, but then he did. He learns a lot just by talking to him. Then he's invited to a place with Koetsu and some other people. Then Musashi has to go because he has this meeting with the Yoshikawa school. This one is a little bit more dicey, but not really, because, you know, he's Musashi and the brother is kind of full of himself and he's a little better skilled than his brother, but unfortunately things don't look good for him in this battle. After this happens, people are enraged. The Yoshikawa school is like, we are gonna be like shamed forever. We can't let this stand. We have to have revenge and we have to have another battle. And at this point, there's like only one more like household member of this school left, and it's Sejiro's youngest like brother, who's like 12. I think his name's Chenjiro, and they bring him to the battlefield. They're all getting ready to set this like trap for this next battle, like to end all, like we're gonna finally defeat Musashi. So it's basically gonna be like a group of like 50 plus samurai training against one man, and they assume that maybe he'll bring some people with him and it's gonna be a big battle. So they like hide in all the trees and they do all this stuff. Even some of them decided to bring like actual weapons of like, what do they call it? There was like a special word that they called it for like the muskets and stuff, like flying weapons, maybe not that, but something like that. Things are not looking well for Musashi if he shows up, especially on his own. So he has to try to come up with some kind of a plan for that battle. And all the while we find out a little bit more about Marahachi, what he's been up to, and Akemi and what she's been up to, and also a little bit about Kojiro, who is the person that Marahachi's been impersonating because he thought that that dude was dead. And so he's been saying to everybody that that's who he is. Yeah, long story short, Marahachi says his name is Kojiro's name, and he's like, oh, that's interesting because that's my name. And like, he finds out that Marahachi's been lying and impersonating him and all that stuff, and teaches him a real good lesson. Musashi somehow figures out how to become victorious in his next battle with the Yoshikawa school, even though the odds were so severely against him. For a moment, he feels some regret about how the whole battle went down, but then he also feels like it was the right decision. He doubted himself for just a moment about how he handled this battle and how he became the victor of it and got away with his life. I mean, he did end up running away. Like, he didn't kill every single person. There was just too many of them. He knew he would die if he tried to get them all. The whole school basically lost face after this. He runs into Osugi, who's been trying to like track him down forever and kill him forever. And Marahachi was supposed to be with her. They were with each other for a moment, and then they got separated mostly because Marahachi ran into Akemi again. And he's like, maybe this is telling us that we should go to Edo together. Everybody's going to Edo. It's being like developed better now, and so everyone's going there. And that's also where Musashi's planning to go. Marahachi gets away from Osugi, and she's really mad at him again, wishing that her son was a better person. She finds Musashi. Somehow he convinces her to like travel together to Edo. Eventually she leaves him and tries to go to Edo to like, I don't know, get the jump on him later or something, and maybe find Marahachi on the way. And it's funny because he goes to this like inn to get some milk or something, and Marahachi's there. So if Osugi had just gone with him, she would have seen her son again. But they meet up for the first time since, I believe, the first battle in the very first book. Unfortunately, Marahachi's still really ashamed of himself and how he's been, and like doesn't really want to be meeting Musashi this way, but here we are. He was even like, hey, I'm gonna be going to Edo soon. Why don't you like meet up with me a little bit later and we'll go there together. He didn't know that Musashi was gonna end up being with Otsu as well, because they meet up again. Yay! Actually, Musashi did meet Otsu a little bit earlier, before his final battle with the Yoshikawa school, and in that battle, they basically say their possible final farewells. He explains to Otsu basically that he might not survive, and that he does actually care for her, and she understands that this is who he is, and that if she wants to like be with him, she also knows that he's not really going to be putting her first, because he's still on this journey. I mean, Otsu accepts this though, because she knows that she loves him and that she's always going to love him, even with these feelings that he has about what he needs to do in his life. She understands, and she's like, I'll follow you and I'll be with you. My heart will be with you no matter what. Thinking that she might not ever see him again, they say goodbye. And then later, when they do see each other again, they decide to travel. And Jotaro's there too. Jotaro, Otsu, and Musashi are all back together again, like one happy family, and it's like, yay! They're on their way to Edo, but on the way, they have like a moment. Musashi and Otsu have a moment, and they get kind of cuddly, and he's overwhelmed with his feelings for her, that he goes towards her to like kiss her, and she freaks out because she's like, this is too much. Like, she doesn't, want him to be with her just for those reasons and stuff, and so she gets kind of freaked out, and then he's like, oh my gosh, I'm so stupid, and then he distances himself from her and Jotaro because he feels like he just can't be close to her without giving in to urges of wanting to be with her, and that he can't control himself around her. He's like beating himself up about it, and that's essentially where book 4 ends. Yes, that whole entire thing was just one book. This is one of the longer ones, I believe. This one and book 5, I think, are the longest. But now we can go on to talking a little bit about book 5, which is Sky. Because Musashi has been keeping distance between Otsu and Jotaro because of what just happened, I think they said it was like almost a mile ahead. Like, why would he be that far ahead? I don't know. Because they're so far away, turns out that Marahachi has been like, he was supposed to go to Edo with Musashi. When he was going up to meet him, he noticed, before he like made himself known, he saw that Otsu was with Musashi, and he got so angry and jealous. There was a thing I forgot to mention in the last book, that there was a confrontation between Marahachi and Otsu that didn't go super well, and it was actually pretty scary because it made it seem like maybe we had lost Otsu in that scene. Luckily, we did not, because here we are and she's traveling with Musashi, but that just made Marahachi really upset. So he's been secretly following them this whole time. When he realized that something bad must have happened, because Musashi was basically like missing, like so far ahead, that he took that moment to essentially kidnap Otsu and knock out Jotaro. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this dude, Marahachi is so troubled and he just can't accept things and be reasonable about things. He always says he wants to do better and that he needs to become better for his mom and to show Musashi that he's worth something. But then he goes and does a stunt like this where it's just like, you're just not thinking clearly, dude. But anyways, the situation, of course, Musashi doesn't realize, but he like takes a little break in like a tea house or somewhere like that to wait for them. And while he's waiting, he's like, they should have caught up to me by now. So he's thinking something probably happened. While he's realizing that he needs to go find what happened to them, he starts backtracking because he's trying to find what the heck happened to Jotaro and Otsu. And so while he's trying to find them, he goes to like it looks like a farmer's home, because he finds the cow, because they've been traveling with a cow, so Otsu could kind of rest on the cow while they traveled. The cow was left, I'm pretty sure when Musashi took Otsu, the cow got left or something, and so they picked up the cow and took it home. There's like a confrontation, and the man that sees Musashi, he thinks that there's danger, and so they have like a small bout, which this man loses. But they get to talking and it's like, oh, it's just a misunderstanding. This person is actually quite important because he is going to be a pretty good friend of Musashi for like most of the other books. He does appear multiple times after this. And his name is Gonosuke. Gonosuke goes with Musashi to look around town to see if there's any hints of where these two travelers that he was with, like where they ended up. And so they hear from someone that they saw a small boy that probably fit the description of his traveler companion with a man named Daizo. He goes back to have a rest at Konosuke's house before he goes to try to find Daizo and hopefully Jotaro. While he's there, he overhears his mom saying how like they need to do a rematch. He has to like win the bout this time. Musashi hears this and he's like, he knows he would most likely kill this guy if they had another one, so he secretly leaves. Eventually, while he's traveling, he runs into those two again, because it turns out they were like, you can't run away from, like, you just like snuck out because you didn't want to have a real challenge, a real battle with me. So Musashi like kind of reluctantly was like, okay. And they had an actually very good bout that resulted in neither of them dying, which is good. And he insists to Konosuke that what had gone down, his mom like shouted during it, was like, your hips, like lower your hip. And it turns out like what happens is Musashi feels like he lost that the bout, and Konosuke's like, no, you're so good. And they ended up deciding to be friends because they both learned from each other, and Musashi just insisted like, no, I didn't win that. So even though Musashi feels like he didn't, Konosuke still was just like, no, he was the better fighter. And it's just like two good men right there, just like respectful and aware of their flaws and aware of the other person's strengths, that they're willing to admit things, you know, be respectful about it at the same time. I just think that's really cool. They part for now, and he goes to try and find whatever happened to Jotaro. Turns out Jotaro is traveling with Daizo, and he sees something that he shouldn't have seen Daizo doing. Daizo holds that over his head and says, well, now that you've seen this, you have to be my son and stay with me and travel with me forever. And so Jotaro's like stuck with this man now. There's also a scene where Jotaro runs into Akemi again. This poor girl's just been through it. She just cannot find there's just a lot of things that happened to her that's unfortunate, and she just can't seem to catch a break. Just kind of like Marahachi, they both just can't really seem to catch a break. One of my favorite parts in this book is Iori, who is another boy that Musashi ends up meeting. He comes to this kind of like smaller village area that does not have like any crops. It's been known to just flood really bad. It gets really bad rain and it just floods, and there's like nothing can grow there. And he runs into this boy whose name's not Iori at first. Musashi decides to give him the name Iori because after they speak with each other a little bit, he finds out that this boy's father recently passed. Iori finally was just like, can you please teach me? Can you please help me become like you? And at first I was kind of saddened because it's like, well, what about Jotaro? Like, he was your first like disciple and he's missing right now, and you're gonna take on another student to teach, basically. And so part of me, I was just like, no. But then of course Musashi decides, because he does also feel a little bad about, you know, what had happened with that situation. So he's like, I don't know if I'm even good enough to be a teacher. But he ends up saying yes, and he gives him his new name. He's like, okay, first things first, we're gonna burn down your house. So go get anything important out of it. We're gonna burn it down. And then Musashi's like, now we're gonna build a new house right here. And Iori's like, wait, we're not going somewhere? We just burned that down just to build another house? And he's like, that was your father's house. We are building one for us now. I want to say it's been 2, maybe 3 years since he lost track of Otsu and Jotaro. He never ended up finding either of them, which was so sad. And he's just, I think it had been like 2 years, and then he spent the third year with Iori, and he decided that it's actually okay for him to stay here and try to make this town have crops, and to try to figure out how to keep it from flooding every year, and to like help this village actually be able to grow food. He thought, this is actually good. This is following the way. Even though I'm not doing battles right now, I can still discipline myself by doing hard work in this way. And so he taught Iori this kind of training. And I just really like this section because it's different, and he's not just immediately going on to the next battle where he has to go kill another person to prove his strength and to prove that he is like a good samurai and all that. Like here, he's able to like work more on his soul than the strength part of it. Yeah, I just really liked it, and I did end up really liking Iori as well. And I think that they were a really good pair, and I feel like he did right by Iori and teaching him this first before trying to teach him how to have bouts with people. And then there's this man named Shinzo who ends up getting in the crosshairs of Kojiro, and Kojiro almost kills him, but he ends up surviving, and he ends up meeting with Musashi while he's recovering. And basically that's the end of this book. Musashi's trying to get Shinzo to get to safety to go back home, and they kind of get ambushed from people again, and Musashi's like, let's just run away. And they're like, what? And he's like, sometimes it is best to just run and to not try to do a battle. And everyone thought of him, like everyone else that heard about this thought, oh my gosh, maybe Musashi's not that good after all. Maybe he's just a coward. They post signs all around him to kind of try to tarnish his reputation. Yeah, so that's kind of where that book ends, and then we start book 6, Sun and Moon. Book 6, Sun and Moon, is Musashi knows that there's signs about him being a coward. He doesn't care. He knows himself, and he knows what he's searching for and the reasons he does certain things, so he pays no mind to those. Osugi, though, she's continuing to spread the bad words about him and trying to keep him from becoming a retainer at any houses, because there's this house, the house of Hosokawa. He and Kojiro are both being looked at as prospects to become retainers for this lord of this house, and it's a pretty big deal. This house is pretty big. One guy, Sato, he finds out about all the good things that he did with this village that he was staying in, so he's been trying to track him down ever since to get Musashi. This other guy, there's another person that actually wants to get Kojiro to be recruited, and so he is trying to get him to go. And Kojiro's around, so he's like, yeah, maybe that sounds like a good idea. Like, how much could I get paid? And eventually he accepts it, and he becomes like a retainer. I think he also starts creating his like school of teaching for the other samurai, his style of fighting, which I believe he calls the Ganryu style. That's the path that he's on. Musashi is, well, he's just, you know, floating around, so we can't really track him down to figure out if he's gonna be wanting to do that or not. Meanwhile, we do actually find out that Otsu has been with Matahachi this whole time, but then someone ends up recognizing her and she's like, please take me away from this guy. And they do. And there are people that have connections to, like, relatives, I think, of the first person lord that Musashi wanted to fight. I'm probably saying it wrong, but Sekisushai was like the very first person that Otsu ended up playing her flute for and stayed there for a long time. And he's getting up there in age, so he's not doing well. And when she finds this out, she's like, please take me to see him. She goes with someone to go and see probably his last moments of, and so she's grateful that he let her go with her and or with him. And meanwhile, Iori is supposed to be dropping off a letter. Iori gets lost. He actually meets Otsu in the woods, like, while they're passing by, and she's like, oh, it's that way, and they help him get unlost. So he delivers the message like he's supposed to. Eventually, Iori is asking Musashi to take him to, like, this festival with lots of dancing and stuff up by this temple. Musashi's like, all right, let's go. While he's up there, he realizes, while he's watching the drummers, he's like, they have 2 drumsticks, 2 swords. Like, I should be fighting. I have 2 hands of 1 body. I should be using 2 swords. So he adapts this style of using 2 swords. He learned something from going to this, but unfortunately, Baiken, who was in, like, book 2, so forever ago, Baiken was trying to get revenge on him and tried to kill him a long time ago and failed. And so he was, like, trying to get him ever since. And it turns out Oku and Toji are there too. And they all discover that Musashi's there, and so they do, like, a surprise attack on him. And he's got his ball and chain and sickle thing. Musashi, as amazing as he is, like, messes the dude up. You can't sneak up on Musashi, even though he hasn't really been battling for a while. He's never lost his, like, motivation to become a better fighter and a better person and a better samurai and ronin, technically. And yeah, so he stops that real quick. Things do not go well for those guys. It turns out during this, because he was ambushed by lots of people. Luckily, Iori was, like, safe. And it turns out someone came and started, like, helping him fight off some people. And it turns out it was Konosuke. So Konosuke's back. I might have missed an important detail that happened in another book. It might have been in the previous book, but Daizo comes back into the picture. Finally, we're like, where the heck has Jotaro been this whole time? And years have passed, so he's, like, 17, almost 18 at this point, like a man, basically. And he's been into thieving with Daizo because he's basically, like, forced into doing this now. Long story short, Matahachi is feeling like he needs more money. He runs into Daizo. Daizo says, you know what, I can help you. I just need you to kill the Shogun for me. Matahachi, oh my gosh. He decides that he'll do it because he's offered so much money. And he's like, here, take some gold right now. Go store it away nicely. And go bury it so no one steals it, and then you'll get the rest when the deed's done. And tells him how to go about it and everything. My gosh. When you think maybe Matahachi's, like, starting to turn things around, he's spending time with Akemi. They're like married but not married kind of situation. Akemi's getting kind of tired of him, and Daizo's just trying to use him to, never intending to pay him the money he's promised, but just needs somebody to do the dirty work for him because he's got this whole plan of, like, overthrowing everything and, getting rid of the Shogun. And Matahachi's stupid and going along with this plan. He still hasn't, like, done it, but he got himself in trouble trying to snoop around. So he gets thrown into, like, this, like, workshop place as, like, a punishment. But he escapes because he realizes, this is dumb. I shouldn't try to be killing someone. I better go find the gun and, like, get rid of it so that this doesn't happen and that I cannot be tied to this. And as he goes to get it turns out that Takuan is there. I think Jotaro was supposed to plant it, but Takuan ends up finding Jotaro. So he decides to trust Takuan and tell him everything. And he's like, yeah, this is serious. So that's why he was there, and he caught Matahachi trying to uncover it. And he gives no mercy to Matahachi. Matahachi just starts sobbing, and he's like, no, you gotta help me, please, help me, like, get me out of this situation. And he's like, no. The next day, Takuan goes to get him out of this place, out of this shed, and he's just miserable. Matahachi's miserable, and he deserves it, of course. And I mean, he dug his own grave, and he goes, and Akemi ends up being captured too. I think it's because she kind of worked with Daizo to get Matahachi in this situation, so she's there too. They get placed down on their knees in front of this area. He thought he was going to be executed right there and then, so he was waiting for it. And they just punished them by slashing them a bunch on their backs and cutting them up, like, I think like 100 slashes or something. Like, it's bad. And afterwards, Takuan and everyone else leaves. And he turns to Akemi and he's like, is it over? Like, are they not gonna chop our heads off now? And Akemi's like, weren't you listening? They said that we're just banished from Edo and we must leave. He got super lucky, and you would think, well, this better be a final lesson for Matahachi to get his freaking act together. Like, come on. I believe this is the end of this book. I just finished book 7, and so I did not take any notes on 7 because I figured it's fresh enough on my mind to say about it now. Book 7 is called The Perfect Light. In this book, we have discovered that Kojiro has been working for a while now. He's been going as the name of Ganryo now, named after his style, and he's looked up to quite a lot. Like, he's gotten a little more mature. You know, he's met Musashi a few times, and kind of like in a playful way, where he was kind of like playing both sides in certain situations, and pretty cocky. And eventually he, you know, after getting this job, he's kind of mellowed out and become a little more serious. People start to think he's, you know, really good, and basically it's like him and Musashi are like the two strongest samurai / ronin at this point. Jotaro, he basically is supposed to be like meeting up with his father. Takuan said, like, you got to get out of here or you're going to be caught up in this mess, so what you need to do now is leave. Eventually he gets out of doing that and ends up being what he always wanted to be, which is like training to be a samurai. It turns out that Otsu, we finally hear about her again after she left from her visit with her old lord. She ends up going to Shikama to be a dyer they have this like really famous dark blue, deep blue color of dye that they make, and she's found a comfortable place there. And it turns out that she is tricked by this guy that she thought she could trust, saying that the sister of Musashi was just in this like other area, that they could travel together and go see her, and she probably would have information about her brother Musashi, because Otsu hasn't seen Musashi ever since they had that falling out like 2 books ago. And so she's just really desperate to see him again, because there's been rumors that Musashi and Kojiro are going to have an actual battle to like a life and death battle. They've been wanting Musashi they wanted to get him as a retainer, and then that never ended up happening. It got ruined because of Osugi's like constant battering, and eventually that got around to enough people that more and more people started to believe it, so that his reputation was getting wrecked because of Osugi. Her plan was working. Pretty much everyone around knows that this battle's going to happen, but it's supposed to be private, like on this private beach where only a couple people can watch it to see what happens. Even though they know about it, they're not allowed to be on the actual island itself. That's how they decided to agree to this. And Musashi, like, through letters and stuff, he knows it's happening. He's in his own way getting ready for the battle. Anyway, back to Otsu. It turns out that Osugi just still has it out for her and paid someone to bring her to here, knowing that she'd believe in the whole story, when in reality no one has seen Musashi's sister for a long time. She like was barely in this book at all. It kind of makes sense that this was not actually going to happen. So she ends up getting like tied up to be taken away. She's about to go get, you know, who knows what done to her. And turns out Jotaro found her a while back and has been secretly like watching over her and followed them. After she's been taken away, he confronts Osugi and gets the better of her, and she barely remembers him and still thinks he's a child. He traps her in a cave, goes down to go rescue Otsu. He does end up freeing Otsu, and then instead of going back to free Osugi, they just go home. Like, they just go back and get some shelter for the night. and it ends up being like really stormy. And so Otsu feels bad about Osugi. Man, she is so forgiving. She's like, I don't want her to be out there trapped somewhere. So she goes and she finds where she's at and gets her freed. And then immediately Osugi turns on her and still just cannot get over what happened to her son. When, frankly, Marahachi deserved this. Like, Otsu's just not meant to be with him and never was. Unfortunately, Osugi really hurts Otsu a lot, to the point where she thinks she might have killed her. We finally have an arc in Osugi's character, and she finally decides that she's been in the wrong this whole time, and that she realized how Otsu still was being kind to her even after she, clearly didn't deserve Otsu's kindness. She has this massive change of heart. She realizes that she should never have been saying all these awful things about Musashi, and she finally believed everything that Otsu and Musashi tried to tell her about this not being what it looked like. It's almost a little unbelievable that this far into the story, when there's like 20 pages left, that she suddenly has this change of heart. But at the same time, she was just very stubborn. And as soon as she releases that from herself, it's like she feels, so much lighter. Why didn't she do this before? I'm glad. She was such a hateful character for so long that even she could change in the end, and which is great. So we're almost at the end of this epic tale of this like amazing samurai story. We have Musashi, who is just seemingly so calm when he realizes like to not be overconfident, that this could be the last time he's alive. I just really, really love how this book ended. It had to come to an ending at some point. I mean, it's so big how like, I just think that it ended so perfectly to me. But before he gets on the boat to go to the final island to have the fight, he ends up seeing like Konosuke and Osugi, and they get to have some final words together. And then Otsu's there. Otsu ended up being able to make it, like barely make it before he gets on the boat. And when he sees her, he runs to her. He's so happy to see her. It doesn't like mess up his state of mind or anything. He welcomes the fact that she's there. They just have this moment that is so precious and so, it's just great. I'm just so glad that what happened. It was so good, guys. Okay, I seriously don't think I can say anything bad about this book. My gosh, I just really, really love the way that they were able to speak to each other and how they spoke to each other before he left on the boat. Jotaro has matured so much because he didn't even get to say anything. He just watched. He gave that time to Otsu. And finally, when he's ready, he gets on the boat to go to the final battle. The battle is finally here. It's so intense. I couldn't put the book down. I just had to get to the end because I knew here it is. He's either gonna die or he's gonna come out the victor. This is what's great about it. It's it doesn't drag on forever. There's just enough details so that you can feel that you are there and that you know what's going on. And it's a really good ending battle. And yeah, I love the way that it was executed and the final words that they were speaking to each other and the way that Musashi handled the battle. 5 stars, guys. And then the book ends. The book ends with this battle being the final thing. And then it leaves us with what is it? A metaphor? It leaves us with just this thought that is supposed to reflect on your life basically, and what things are most important versus which things are you going to focus on the most in your life. I think it was a nice way to end it because it was a little open-ended in some aspects. There were it didn't just and this happened and this happened and this happened, the end. It just kind of left it with okay, now the battle's over And here's a nice little thought to leave you with. Overall, oh my gosh, if you like are still watching this, I probably should have just split this into 2 videos, honestly, but it is what it is. Thank you for watching this whole thing if you did. My goodness, I really hope that you read this book if you haven't. There are a lot of things that I did actually, it doesn't seem like it, but there are a lot of things that I did leave out. So I'm so excited because there's like movies, and I'm sure there's lots of adaptations of this, but there's like a movie that came out in like 1954. It's like a trilogy, and I am gonna watch that and do a video about my thoughts on it too. I'm so excited to see it on screen. I really just don't think I can say anything bad about it because all the characters were just so great. They learned so much. Like almost every single one of them had some kind of change that happened in them. Like Sojiro got more mature. Musashi went through, you know, multiple things throughout the book. Osugi, the one character that I thought was just never gonna change, even had like a character arc, and it was just great. And like Otsu, love her. Of course we have our troubled characters of Akemi and Marahachi, and even those two, with all their misfortunes, were able to have their own resolutions. Marahachi was finally able to find his place. And same with Akemi, like it was just a wake-up call for both of them to like lead better lives and to figure things out. And I think it makes a lot of sense where they ended up at the end of this. Jotaro, Iori, there is actually something that I feel like was not completely fledged out, and that was something that has to do with Iori and Otsu. I'll just leave you with that, but I think for the most part a lot of things were wrapped up really nicely, and I really enjoyed how this book ended. This is definitely, if you've never read this before, Musashi, this is definitely just, it's such a breath of fresh air. I know this book's been out for a long time, but amongst all of the like content that we're getting now, it's just very saturated with like YA romance or just romance in general. But this is just like something that is just, it has romance in it, but just in a different kind of way. It's not super tropey, it's not like very predictable, it's got so many different adventures in it. It's just something that, like, if you just don't want to read something that's so similar to something you just read and you just want something completely different, I feel like this is it. Like, it just gives you so much, and it was just so interesting like the whole time. Yes, there were some parts that I was a little lost at when it came to like all the names, because I'm not familiar with Japan. Like sometimes it was hard to keep track of each place and what it was called, and like which people came from which place, especially when we get more characters and then we don't hear about them forever and then they come back. It's like, wait, who was this again? And so yeah, there's a lot to keep track of, but again, take notes. I know some people do annotate, like they just use the sticky notes and stuff in the book. If that's your jam, do that, because it will be very helpful for you. I think I enjoyed it so much. So anyways, oh my gosh, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.